සාවර නියෝග 23 යටතේ ප්‍රශ්න ගරු රාජව රෝදියම් සම්බන්ධන් මහතා. Honorable Sambandhan.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I raise as a matter of urgent public importance the question relating to the number of members of Parliament entitled to be elected to the Jaffna electoral district. The total number of members of Parliament elected to the territory covered by the present Jaffna electoral district in 1977 under the first past the post system was 11. The total number of members of Parliament elected to the Jaffna electoral district under the proportional representation system at the last general election was 9. It would appear that the number is to further decline and become 6. This reduction is attributed to the decline in the total number of voters currently registered within the Jaffna electoral district. It cannot be denied that this decline has not been caused voluntarily. It has been due to various circumstances that were the result of the war that prevailed for around 3 decades and the violent and abnormal situation that prevailed within the Jaffna electoral district throughout that period. As a consequence of the war, the Jaffna Peninsula, the main population base of the Jaffna electoral district, was depopulated almost entirely around 1995 and 1996, from which it has not yet fully recovered. People were also compelled to move to areas outside the Jaffna electoral district as a result of aerial bombing, artillery and rocket launcher fire, combat between the Sri Lankan, almost entirely Sinhala armed forces, and Tamil rebels, as it became utterly unsafe for these people to remain in their original residences within the Jaffna electoral district. Extreme difficulties in regard to food, medical attention, safe shelter, livelihood opportunities, and scarcity of other essentials also compel people to vacate and move out of their original residences within the Jaffna electoral district. In the situation prevalent, registration of voters has not been as regular and methodical as at normal times. Many voters were not in possession of their national identity cards, and consequently their names have been omitted from the voters' registers. People's attention was more focused on other matters of urgent and immediate concern, such as ensuring their personal safety rather than registering themselves as voters. A large number of these people took up residence in other parts of the country, have resided with host families in other districts in the north. Some have gone to India, and some others have gone to other parts of the world. These people have the desire and also the right to return to their original place of residence and be registered as voters within the Jaffna electoral district. Many of them are unable to do so on account of the existence of a large number of high security zones, restricted areas, controlled by the military, and the people being denied the right to resettle in such areas. The excessive presence of the military, even in civilian residential areas, several civilian properties are being occupied by the armed forces. A suspension of the rule of law and the imposition of a state of emergency, rendering civilian life vulnerable and unsafe. The presence of paramilitary groups with the blessings of the government who violate the law brazenly, and the overweening culture of impunity still prevails. A situation of normalcy is yet to return to the Jaffna electoral district that would enable the displaced people to return to their original places of residence with confidence in regard to their safety and security. The people are also being compulsorily kept out of their places of habitat and residence by the continued existence of high security zones and restricted areas. The vast majority of voters within the Jaffna electoral district are Tamils. A substantial reduction of their representation in Parliament is tantamount not merely to a denial of their franchise, but also the erosion of their sovereignty. The Tamil people in the north and east of Sri Lanka have consistently urged paradigm changes in the structure of governance as the only means to achieve genuine reconciliation between the different peoples and ensure that the country does not return to the path of violence with all its evil consequences. Reduction of the representation of the Jaffna electoral district would in reality mean the reduction of effective Tamil representation in Parliament and the denial of equal treatment and political justice to the Tamil people. The abnormal situation that has prevailed and is yet prevalent within the Jaffna electoral district should not be ignored and disregarded. Legal provisions pertaining to representation in Parliament meant to be applicable in normal situations should not be applied to situations which are abnormal and in which people are prevented from returning to their residence and being registered as voters. Such a step would in fact distort the true objective of the said legal provisions intended to guarantee the right to equality in representation in Parliament. This constitutes a perversion which will result in grave injustice to an already deprived and disenchanted people. It is within the power of the state to preserve the status quo ante until a situation of normalcy returns to the Jaffna electoral district and a decision is arrived at in regard to representation from the Jaffna electoral district to Parliament in normal times. the Sri Lankan state has thus far disrespected and disregarded the democratic verdicts of the Tamil people. A hasty determination in regard to representation to Parliament from the Jaffna electoral district can only be interpreted as a deliberate move on the part of the Sri Lankan state to further emasculate the democratic and political freedom of the Tamil people. Before I conclude, Mr. Speaker, may I just refer to this one stark and significant fact. The first parliament after independence in 1947 had 101 members, 95 elected and 6 nominated. A total of 7 members were elected from the constituencies comprising the Jaffna district. Out of that total of 95 in the Sri Lankan parliament elected by the people. 64 years later, 1947 to 2011, the representation for the same territory comprising the Jaffna electoral district is to be reduced to 6, from 7 to 6. After 64 years, the representation in this House from the Jaffna district, which was 7 in 1947, will come down to 6 in 2011. This is a graphic demonstration of how the political strength of the Tamil people is being diluted, and unless reversed, will raise serious questions in regard to this country's political future. In the circumstances above defined, Mr. Speaker, we call upon the government to take necessary steps to preserve the status quo ante and to prevent a grave injustice. I thank you.
අමාත්‍යංශ නිවේදන ගරු අගමැතිතුමා.
නියෝජ්‍ය කතානායකතුමනි, ගරු සම්බන්ධ මන්ත්‍රීතුමාගේ ප්‍රකාශයට පිළිතුර ශ්‍රී ලංකා ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී සමාජවාදී ජනරජයේ ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ 98 වැනි අණු ව්‍යවස්ථාව අනුව මැතිවරණ කොමසාරිස්වරයා අංක 1715/4 සහ 2011/7/18 දිනතුව නිකුත් කරන ලද එසත් නිවේදනයේ ප්‍රකාරව යාපනයේ මැතිවරණ කොට්ඨාසය සඳහා වූ පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රී ධුර සංඛ්‍යාව 10 සිට 6 දක්වා අඩු වීමට හේතු වූ කුමක්දයි නිරතුරුවම විමසුම් කරනු ලැබේ. ශ්‍රී ලංකා ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රව සමාජවාදී ජනරජයේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ මන්ත්‍රී ධුර සංඛ්‍යාව ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ විධිවිධානයන්ට අනුකූලව 225ක් වේ. ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ 99 අණු ව්‍යවස්ථාව අනුව එම දුර සංඛ්‍යාවෙන් ජාතික ලැයිස්තුව යටතට ගැනෙන මන්ත්‍රීවරුන් 29 දෙනා ගණනය කරනු ලබන්නේ පාර්ලිමේන්තු මැතිවරණයේදී දෙන ලද මුළු ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව හා එම මන්ත්‍රී මැතිවරණයේදී එක් පක්ෂය හා ස්වාධීන කණ්ඩායම් ලබා ගන්නා ලද ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව අනුවයි. මුළු පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රී දුර 225න් ඉතිරි මන්ත්‍රී දුර 196 දිස්ත්‍රික් අතර බෙදී යන ආකාරය ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ 96, 97 හා 98 වන ඡේදවල පැහැදිලි කර ඇත. ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ විධිවිධාන අනුව ශ්‍රී ලංකාව පළාත් 9කින් සමන්විත වන අතර ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ 96/4 අණු ව්‍යවස්ථාව අනුව එක් පළාතට මන්ත්‍රී දුර 4 බැගින් හිමි විය යුතු වේ. එම සෑම පළාතකටම අයත් එක් මැතිවරණ කොට්ඨාස සඳහා වෙන් කළ යුතු මන්ත්‍රී දුර සංඛ්‍යාව පිළිබඳ නිවේදනයේ ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ 95 වන ව්‍යවස්ථාව අනුව 1978/11/29 වෙනි දින පත් කරන ලද මැතිවරණ කොට්ඨාස සීමා නිර්ණය කොමිෂන් සභාවේ නිර්දේශ මත 1981/1 පස්වන දිනතේ 123 ඔබ්ලික් 3 දරන